Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, well, that looked better than the Flash. Boom. Okay, so Ironstrike is one of those sort of games where I instantly disliked it until I really got into it. It's kind of a slow burner in a way, and definitely benefits when you hit that 4-player co-op. So hit them like and subscribe buttons, and let's get into it, shall we? And so, Ironstrike is basically a 4-player co-op roguelike, featuring physics-based swordplay and bow and arrows and all those sort of lovely things that we like to do in VR. But it can also be played in single player, and that is basically where I started. Entering the world, you discover that basically you're there to help 4 guards regain their stuff. As you progress, you will be freeing these guards in order for them to take back the lands and restore everything back to its former glory. Basically, these guards also give you abilities and different armors and things that you can buy with currency from in-game as you earn it as you go along. Now, my first encounter in this game was a bit weird. It was very sparse. I understand that they want it to be more open and everything, but it kind of felt like one of those old games where 3D was only just being invented. Okay, so it wasn't quite that bad, but it did give me that sort of sparseness type feel to it. It does get a little bit better as you go along, but not a great deal. The sound, however, was pretty decent and I quite enjoyed it. The chings and changs and all that lot were all what I expected, really. It was pretty decent. There was also voice acting for the guards, which I really appreciated. I love it when devs do this. It really is appreciated by me, at least. Well done, thank you very much. The actual gameplay, well, it's done by going to these obelisks on and on and on, but you gain different abilities and powers as you progress by defeating waves upon waves of different enemies, getting stronger, some light attacks, some heavy attacks, some distance attacks, and some attacks that are, well, basically sword on sword. If you've got a sword, that is. Because at the beginning of each level, you get to choose what weapon you want to go into. And yes, these can be upgraded. I stuck with the bow and arrow for the single player and for some of the actual multiplayer as well. It all works almost kind of like a tank and DPS type feel to it, which was quite good because I was a big WoW player in the day and it kind of felt natural to me. And I definitely thought that the DPS or the bow and arrow was definitely the way to go in the single player, because basically you get attacked and unless you can get away from them and attack at the same time and attack range, you kind of get encompassed or something like that by different characters all at the same time. So anyway, my first impressions, it was a little bit boring, a little bit too open. But weirdly enough, I did start to enjoy it as I went on. It did get better for me. In fact, it actually became almost addicting in a way. I wanted to see what came next. I wanted to go and see what enemies were next and see how many I can still defeat. It's a wave shooter. It's kind of like what it does, I guess. As I mentioned, you have upgrades and abilities that you can gain in between each round. And these have different abilities and also like things like exploding arrows and poison arrows and things like that that deal damage over time, which was actually pretty cool. When it's game over, however, it's back to the hub and basically you can spend any coins or whatever the currency is on new sets of armor and things like that, which is pretty cool. You can also gain like crossbows, better crossbows and better weapons with more damage on it. I personally found that the crossbow was awkward to load. You had to load it with both hands and do all sorts of different things. It just didn't feel like the controllers or the hand movements were doing what I wanted to do all the time, and it took too much time, and therefore I ended up dying at the end of some rounds. This was very unfortunate. I stuck to the bow and arrow because it was a little bit more natural. And on to the multiplayer. The multiplayer is basically like the single player, but obviously up to 4 people. I played with, I think 4 people actually, and at the start of some of the rounds people were talking and we were having a bit of a laugh and everything, and then when we got into the rounds it kind of felt like everyone was too serious. They talked for a little bit, but after a minute or two, that's it, silence. And I might as well have just been playing a single player game on my own, because I don't mind no banter, but a bit of communication. Oh, over there, quick help me and things like that, but no one was doing it, and it just felt a bit weird in a multiplayer game to not have anyone talking in any way, shape or form. I have played other multiplayer games in VR, and generally most communities communicate, and it just wasn't so here. I'm here. No one's talking. I kind of felt that there was a bit of the upper class hierarchy, considering some players had really cool armor that basically you could see they've been playing this game for a while, and they kind of looked down on some of us lower level ones, and this wasn't everyone, it was just a few people. I also had some host disconnect because obviously us newbies weren't as good as the higher ones, or at least I think that's what it felt like, because we're all going great guns and there was a couple of us that kept on dying here and there. But on games where no one died, no one disconnected, it felt really weird. So where do I stand on Ironstrike so far? Well, so far, although it's sparse, I did actually find it quite an interesting experience. It's not badly priced, and I definitely think I would recommend it. But if you're playing on your own, it may be a bit of a hit and miss. Luckily enough, I did always get a game, but as I said, not all the time people were talking. It does have plenty of upgrades, plenty of different weapons to be used, and there definitely is fun to be had here. I definitely think it's an above average game, and I definitely also think that it's kind of like one of those ones where you get what you put in out of it. I also think there's a little bit of conditioning that's going on here. It's the fact that we're all used to having this sort of game in enclosed spaces. As the game actually says, it's wide open, and it is a novelty able to move around and be able to shoot or hit in any direction you want. So it's going to be a just about 7 out of 10. I almost went on to 6, but I did actually enjoy it in the end on the single player game, and I will go back to this one, and I'm interesting to see all the updates. It did get a bit fiddly at one stage or another, but not really that many times. And I definitely think if you've got any mates that have this game and you jump in with them, you're definitely going to have a bit of a blast, mainly because you'll be able to talk to each other and not ignore each other. So that's your lot. Thank you for joining me. It's been a blast as usual. I hope you liked the review. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help the channel. Come join us in our community Discord. The link is down below. And until next time, please stay safe out there, because life is better when we game together.